to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 132. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. Instead, for the last couple of years, we've been traveling vicariously by inviting guests to share their unique travel stories with us.
It's been awesome, and our podcast has been all over the globe.
Now we're taking some time to revisit the Wish You Were Here segment of our show, where we each share travel attractions that we recommend.
Today, the Wish You Were Here's are from the UK.
United
Right.
Kingdom! No, Cheryl. First of all, I'm pretty sure that mate is Australia.
When I was in London one time, visiting a friend of the show, Jennifer, who talked about her time studying abroad there on our podcast,
Yeah.
I did my British accent for her flatmates. It's really terrible right now. Your
did you?
eyes are just like, and
And-
they said, one of them said I sounded like the girls she went to boarding school with, and another one said I sounded like her mom. And then someone else called a friend and had me do my British accent for her friend, and she said it sounded good. So
Okay, Cheryl. Are you going to do the rest of this intro in your British accent then?
well, now I'm embarrassed because you're making really weird faces at me. I don't normally do accents when I'm in that country. Well, and I don't normally do accents anyway. But it was a fun moment of like, these are friends of Jen. And she was like, Cheryl, do your accent. And I do think it's fun to hear people do an American accent if you're like already
Yeah.
chatting with them and like,
Yep.
let's hear your American accent, you know? So, yeah, apparently I overpronounce some of the letters. So that was one thing I learned is it's not
Okay.
British, it's British. That
Well, I
was
think
one
it
thing.
depends. There's more than one British accent. There
I
are
know, there's
multiple
like a million,
accents.
right?
Yeah. So who knows?
Yes.
Who knows?
But if our listeners are hoping to go to the UK and using this episode as like, what should I do there? I would say don't do a British accent there, but do these things from these Wish You Were Here's, because this would be a great trip if you went and did all these things.
Yeah, it's a really good balance of things that are in London, the capital city, the huge big city, and also things that are outside of London. So getting out of the big city and going and seeing and doing other things. It's a really good mix, I think.
Yeah, I know. I think what we're learning here is episode after episode, we're just going to be sad that we're not on these trips.
I know.
But also, I really hope that people are using these as maybe a guide for future planning as we start to plan travel.
I think so. Shall we hear about the UK?
Let's do it. Ryan and I have a bit of a combined one, kind of on accident, that we realized before recording. So we
Yeah.
have both been to, I thought it was just pronounced TKTS. Ryan pronounces it tickets.
Tickets.
But, I mean, that would make sense. They just took out some of the letters, and that's how language works. So the tickets booth, I've been to the one in New York, and Ryan has been to the one in London. So I'll share about my experience in New York, and then Ryan, you can share about yours in London.
Okay. So the one in London, as far as I know, there's only one. I don't think there are 3 different locations. And it's in Leicester Square, and it's been years since I've been there. What I'm remembering, though, is there's a couple of different kind of entrances like that you can walk down to get into Leicester Square, and a lot of them are lined with all sorts of things. They discount show tickets, authentic discount show ticket, like all of these different places. But really, and I mean, maybe they can get you stuff, but the tickets booth is is the like legit one.
It's like the
and it's the
official-
same sort of
yeah.
thing. You can get them for cheap. Oftentimes they're good seats, but it really just depends on what's available. It's usually day of. Sometimes they might do some out, more than the day of, but they're usually day of. And it's not difficult. You just, like you said, Cheryl, if you really want to see a particular show,
Yeah.
then, you've got less options.
Yeah.
But if you just want to see a show, so I've seen 3 shows because I've been to London twice. And so I saw Phantom of the Opera, which was
Yes.
great. I love Phantom.
Yeah.
And then I saw, technically it's not a musical, but I saw An Inspector Calls, which is actually a really good show.
Huh.
If you've seen it. Dawn's nodding. So have you?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things.
Yeah. Did Amazon do someone within the last year online, like streaming, they produced like a movie version of it, which is also really good. I saw it, but like the show was good. A local like community theater up here several years ago, Taproot Theater, did An Inspector Calls. And so anyway, it's really
Maybe that's
good.
where I heard about it.
And then I also went and saw My Fair Lady.
Oh, what?
And it was extra cool because the theater was on Drury Lane. And no, there was no Muffin Man. And in addition to that, so the show, like the story, part of it takes place in Covent Garden, which is a region of London, and that's where the theater is.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
So the
that's
theater
so
is
cool.
in part of London that the show takes place in. And so the set pieces, when they're like outdoor or whatever, and then you're like, oh, that's actually that thing right there. This big glass thing or whatever. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that this is like the same thing. So that was like extra cool. But yes, I suppose I'm getting distracted. It's the tickets booth in Leicester Square. That's technically the Wish You Were Here. It's definitely worth doing to see some cool shows. So.
Sweet. Dawn, have you ever done like a discount ticket thing or something like that?
So the one that I did was also in London, but it wasn't a booth. It was, and I don't know if multiple theaters do this, but it was at Phantom of the Opera. And you basically just stood outside of that theater.
Okay.
And
I've heard about this.
And then you just basically line up, and when they have tickets that are available because people return them or whatever, they just come out to the first person in line and say, here's what's available. Do you want it or no? If the person says no, they move to the next person, and they just kind of move down the line. And like we did it, I think we were standing out there like at 9 or 10 in the morning for like a 1:00 matinee or something we got tickets for.
Okay.
But we were able to sit like on the floor, like I think we were like 10, 12 rows back.
Nice.
And like in the middle for, again, not a ridiculous amount of money because they're just trying to fill the seats at that point in time. So
Right.
they charge you for them, but they're not what the actual ticket price is. And so that worked out pretty well for us.
Cool. Oh, that's so cool.
It was fun.
Shows are the best.
Yay for shows.
All right, off to our new podcast where we talk about Broadway.
I can contribute to that one too.
Okay, cool,
Yes.
cool.
Les Mis on Broadway.
Oh.
Oh, that is so fun.
And how about you, Ryan?
So for me, the one that I picked is actually in London. So interesting that
Great choice.
Yes, you were talking about all of the different things that you can do in London, and so my Wish You Were Here is probably one of my favorite things in London. It's now been, I was just doing the math in my head, 15 years since I've been there. So who knows if it's still the same or not. The British Museum is super well known. It's super famous. At the time when I was there, I think it has been remodeled since I was there, which was more than 15 years ago. But I was not super impressed with the British Museum, to be honest. It was fine, and like the Rosetta Stone was cool, but there was just a lot of stuff just wasn't labeled. It was just randomly in these cases, and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I should be impressed, but I'm not. That's just my own personal problem. But there's this other thing that isn't actually at the British Museum. It's not super far from it, but I don't remember exactly how far away. And it's it's still connected to the British Museum, but it's the British Museum Library.
Yeah.
And it's a separate location. It's a lot smaller. It's way less busy. At least there was at the time. And both me and my cousin who went with me were both agreed that we enjoyed that. At least this is what I'm remembering anyway, a lot more. The British Museum Library has, go figure, books, manuscripts, things. But it has like some of Mozart's original music that he wrote by hand. It has, I think, like a copy of the Gutenberg Bible. And it has these amazing things that are written down.
Oh my god.
That are all just on display.
Wow.
And I don't even remember what all of the things were. I just remember being so impressed at looking at these original manuscripts and things that were written down. And it didn't have the big gargantuan feeling like the British Museum. This British Museum is huge, right? These big giant halls and lots and lots of people, whereas the British Museum Library felt much more intimate and the rooms were smaller and the lighting was more moody. I don't know. Like it was a little bit darker. So it wasn't like dark, but darker because, they're worried about the manuscripts, and aging and things like that. So it was a really, really cool experience, and I would love to go back there again whenever I get back to London. That's one of the places I would totally go back to see again, and I would definitely recommend if anyone happens to be going to London, that would be a place to go. I don't know if you ever made it there while you were there.
I did not, and I wish I did though. Do you think it was because, there's a lot of interesting things that were clearly made by humans in the British Museum, but I think that a lot of the stuff that they have on display, it feels a little bit more impersonal. Thinking about the Rosetta Stone is amazing, but it's also hard to sort of put yourself in the place of the person who's carving that. But I could imagine a piece of paper that Mozart wrote on. I mean, there's definitely much more of it seems to me like a human connection. With that, which I think maybe makes it more amazing when you think about the history of this piece of paper.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, I need to go there now. Add it to the list.
I was going to say, just add it to the list there, Cheryl.
Ryan, how about yours?
Well, mine has nothing to do with food.
Fine.
And it was not really a tour. Well, there's a tour part to it. So my Wish You Were Here is from across the pond in London. I love London. London is an amazing place. And if you ever go to London, there are a few things that I would absolutely hands down recommend that you make the time to do. And one of those things is that you go to the Tower of London. I think the Tower of London is incredibly interesting. It looks like an old school, mini castle because it has walls around the whole thing. It's right there on the Thames. And then there's another mini castle inside the castle. And I remember, right, it's called the White Tower. And there's different museums and things in them. The crown jewels are housed at the Tower of London, which originally I was like, okay, fine, crown jewels. They're real sparkly and real pretty. So it's definitely worth going and seeing them. They're pretty cool. And just the ambiance is cool. That's where you find the beefeaters. And what do they call them? The yeoman warders, I believe are the two names for them. And they're these people that have really ornate looking outfits, and they just kind of walk around, and they're sort of like the tour guides. And so you can just walk up to them, and they're usually pretty colorful individuals that tell really funny stories, but they'll tell you about the history, and they'll tell you about the portcullis and things that had happened there. And I remember learning about the legend about the ravens, because somehow, which by the way, they're huge. They're big old birds, but something about how they clip their wings so that they stay within the grounds, because there's some legend that if they leave, something terrible is going to happen that I don't remember. But it's just a really, really cool kind of historical and cultural experience that's really different. But it's also really cool because it's a castle, and then they've got, I think inside they have, it's sort of like a museum-y thing, but they've got really cool suits of armor and very much what you would picture with historic England. And it's just it's a really cool experience. The next time that I go back to London, which I don't know when that will be, but it will be at some point, I want to go back and I want to do it again. So the Tower of London, I highly, highly, highly recommend it if you go to London, if you've never been. It's a really, really cool experience.
I love it. I went there 19 years ago.
I went there 19 years ago as well. Remember,
Oh,
we
that's
determined we were there
right.
at the same time? Who knows? Maybe we did the tour at the same time.
Oh, that's so funny. I remember loving it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those crown jewels, that is
Right?
pretty impressive.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff that you see even before the crown jewels that are pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of swords.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and then I went there again 11 years ago. Didn't go in that time because I was a college kid, and even getting to London was you know, any extra money being spent was
that's when you
ooh.
visited Jen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about that.
Talked about that on the podcast. That was when we went back there, though, just to see the building, and then she had some friends that wanted to go in. So we just hung out on the outside, but it was just fun even being in that space and around, you know, the buildings and everything was very cool. So, yeah. Oh, good. Those were good Wish You Were Here's.
I think so.
I do say so myself.
Yeah, but we might be a little biased.
How about you, Ryan?
So for me, I'm going to go just outside of London for my Wish You Were Here to the Royal Greenwich Observatory. So you can take a train from London out. I don't remember how long the train is, like 20 minutes maybe. It's not super far. And it'll take you out to this beautiful, beautiful area that has this big, huge, I think they call it a mall, kind of like, the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where it's a big lawn that just has lots and lots of grass. But that, and then there's a couple of buildings and things, and the observatory is there. And of course, I'm biased because I really enjoy astronomy. But the other thing that's really cool about the Royal Greenwich Observatory is where the Prime Meridian goes. The Prime Meridian runs through there.
Really?
Yes. So
I thought
0
it just
degrees
went through the
of
ocean
longitude.
or something.
Well, it also goes through the ocean. Because most of the surface of the Earth is ocean. So I don't know. They've kind of changed it, what they call it now. But GMT, if you're looking at times, like time zones, GMT used to be what they did all time zones based off of. And it's now, I don't remember what it's, UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, or something like that, I believe. But it's the same thing. But GMT was for Greenwich Mean Time. So Greenwich is where they set time zones based off of, as well as the 0 degrees of longitude. And so you can actually go up to, there's a spot where they have a line and you can stand in both the eastern and western hemispheres at the same time. They have the official time clock for the world there, but they also have an actual observatory where they've got, exhibits and kind of a museum, and there's of course astronomical things, and it's just a really, really cool kind of day trip outside of London. You could do it in an afternoon if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be a full day, but you head out there. There's a bunch of other things to see kind of on the waterfront down there and stuff like that. But it's really cool, and it's one of the places that, at least for me, is on my list to go back to.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. I definitely want to go back.
Really?
Yeah. Because I went when I was 18. So the first time that I went to London, we went out there, and it was really cool. But I'd really love to go back. And part of it is because I know so much more about it now. I think I actually would enjoy it even more than when I was there the first time, because I know so much more about astronomy and about just the Earth and how it works and how it's put together and things like that. So I think there'd be even more for me to enjoy.
Wow. That's fun. I like that. Man, now I gotta go there. Add it to the list.
Add it to the list for sure. So, Amanda, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
My Wish You Were Here is the Harry Potter studio tour outside of London.
Studio tour?
Yes,
That
it's where
sounds
they
amazing.
actually filmed Harry Potter, and they have all of the costumes and every prop that was ever made is on
What?
display. And you can like get up really close, take pictures. Like the costumes are just like kind of on costume racks or set up in a way that you know who it is, or they kind of talk about how they make prosthetics and how they make all the creatures, and there's demos, and it was the coolest thing if you're a Harry Potter fan. I went with my husband, and he's not as big of a fan as I am. And we spent, I think, 4 hours, and that was kind of going pretty quickly through the whole thing, because he was sick and not really feeling it. And he was like, can we just please go back? Can we just please go home? And I was like, no, but look, this is Hagrid's hut. You don't understand. But they had like costume, like duplicates where, like if Harry was wearing a certain costume and then later in the scene it gets like burned or trashed in some way from whatever he's doing, they have both of those costumes side by side, the exact same costume, but one is all torn up and one is new, so that they could go back and forth and redo any of those scenes without having just one costume. And so if it was burnt, they couldn't necessarily go back to filming anything without an extra costume. So they had every wig, they had robotics section where they had like robots of like hippogriffs and the little shriveled Voldemort when he's like, like he looks like a small baby. It's actually a robot that like breathes.
Oh no!
It's super cool.
So I quickly did a little internet search. Is this, I'm trying to see if I found the right thing. Is it the Warner Brothers studio tour in London? Is it part of that?
Yeah, it's just outside of London. It's amazing. They have, so I guess when they started filming, they were filming in an actual neighborhood to use all these houses for Perfect Drive. It got to be a little too much for the neighborhood because they were really controlling about like what cars could be parked outside, what it looked like, guests and all that. They recreated this neighborhood in their studio. So you can walk inside Harry Potter's house. You can look under the cupboard, under the stairs. Halfway through, there's like a little cafe where you can get butterbeer and like random things like chili hot dogs. But yeah, it's just amazing.
I'm looking at their website, and one of the things it says it's featuring is behind the seams.
Yeah, I guess that would be behind the scenes.
That's so cute.
While we were there, they had just finished the Gringotts Bank section. And so you walk in Gringotts Bank, you go down the line where there's all those like gremlins, I think. And so you go all the way to the front of the bank, like you're going to ask to get into your bank account. And you go into the next room, and it's the same thing, but it's destroyed.
That's cool.
From when the dragon comes out of from under and destroys everything. And they have some sort of like video projection thing going on where you're in a bank, it's totally destroyed, there's pieces everywhere, and this like projected dragon is coming at you and like blowing fire, and it looks super real.
Wow. Oh my gosh. By the way, it's goblins that work at the bank, but you know.
It starts with a G.
Yes, they're little creatures.
Okay, well, I got to add that to my list. Darn it.
Looks like coming soon, too, is Hogwarts in the Snow.
Oh, yeah.
That looks great. Oh, man, I got to go there.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
You can take
Cool.
like a special bus that will get you there, like a double-decker bus that's like specifically
Is it the
for Harry
night
Potter.
bus?
I was going to say
It's not the night bus. It's not the night bus. The night bus is there though. You can get on the night bus and look at it.
Oh.
But you take a special bus out. It's just outside of town. It takes like 20 or 30 minutes to get there. And
That's not bad.
Yeah. But get your tickets online way, way in advance.
Because
Okay.
it books up.
Yeah.
Good to
Makes
know.
sense.
And that's why you do your research so you don't miss out on Harry Potter.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ryan, how about you?
So the one I'm going to do, I can't believe I haven't done already. I was looking at our list to say, wait, have I not done this? I am going to say Stonehenge in England.
Oh, how have we not talked about Stonehenge yet?
Right? I don't know. I love Stonehenge. I love it. I love it. I love it. It is so cool. Now, you may or may not agree. I don't know if either of you have been there before or not.
Yes.
But I loved it. It has now been 20 years almost since I was there. And there's really not a lot there, to be honest. It's these big, giant stones in a circle, and you walk around it. But it was mind blowing to me. I didn't realize how big the stones were until I was there. And it's so amazing to me that they are still standing from thousands of years ago. And they're relatively simple. It's not this big complex structure that somebody built that, has all of these parts and all this stuff. It's just these big giant stones, some of them standing straight up, some of them, horizontal on top of other ones. And I mean, I also happen to like that they're pretty sure it had something to do with whether a calendar or astronomical somethings and, keeping time and things like that are super cool. And it's kind of out. It's not, it's not near London. It's a couple-hour bus ride, I think, from London. And it's relatively not close, but near the town of Bath. If you've never been there, that's a cool place to see as well. And then something I would love to do that I have not done. But on the equinoxes and on the solstices, and I'm sure it's very, very busy, but they will let you actually go. They do organize things and they'll let you actually go into like beyond just the path that goes around it, but actually walk in amongst the stones. Because on those days, on an equinox or on a solstice, the sun will line up at a particular place in the circle of Stonehenge when it is either rising or setting. And it depends. And I don't know which one's which for which thing, but it'll actually, and that's partly how they know that it was calendars and for keeping time and things, because it lines up on those days in very specific ways. And so that was a goal of mine at some point. It would be really cool to do that. So Stonehenge in England, if you make it out, it's, you can do a day trip just out there and back if you're in London. And from my opinion, totally worth it.
Yeah, I was out in London a few years back when I was living in Spain, visiting a friend of mine from university, and she and I had made plans to go to Stonehenge, and then we didn't go. I can't remember for what reason, but now you're talking about it, I'm like, I have to do that. I have to go. I'm so jealous.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I went there when I was in middle school. And this was the time, Ryan, that you and I realized we were both in England about 20 years ago.
Right.
Like almost around a similar time, which is pretty funny. And yeah, I was there on a family vacation. And so we went to London and then we did like a loop of the country. And I was in 8th grade at the time. And so I do not remember what the route was. I mean, at some point we were in Bath. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we went to Stonehenge, which was great. And it was funny. I remember thinking it was really cool. But my specific memory I have at Stonehenge is that all 5 of us in my family, we all did the audio tour. And, there's like this big, long looking, it's like a phone with a handle under, like below it.
It's kind of like a thick wooden spoon or something that it's like that length, right? Of like a wooden spoon, except it's thick all the way down and you hold it up to your ear.
Metal detector that somebody holds at the airport on you. Like it, and then there's like a keypad on it. And so there were all these options to like, they would tell you a piece of the history of it or whatever. And then it'd say, if you want to hear about this, press 1. If you want to hear about this other thing, press 2, you know? And so you could kind of decide which things you wanted to listen to. And for some reason, all my 2 sisters and I, all 3 of us ended up listening to something that was more goofy. Like they like had these, it sounded so very Monty Python of like the way they were talking. It was like 2 people dialoguing about where like the reddish something on them came from. And one of them was like, some people say it's blood. And then they were like, blood? It's not blood. And like, it was really goofy. And then my parents, both of them ended up listening to something else, like another piece of the audio tour. And so my sisters and I were cracking up. We were laughing so hard. We just thought it was hilarious. And we also like loved Monty Python. We think British humor is so great. And so we're all laughing. And my parents just kept glaring at us because they were like, you guys need to stop laughing. Because I think that they thought we weren't appreciating it. And so it was just so funny. And then we have, obviously this is like back in the day of film cameras. There's this really sweet picture of the 3 of us all with our audio tours with Stonehenge in the background that I just love. If I can find it, I'll post it on our Instagram because it's one of my favorite travel photos from my childhood is this photo.
And that's really funny.
Yeah, Stonehenge is like this very special place in my heart. I think just like in my family relationship too. And yeah.
What would be hilarious is if you pull out that photo and I'm in the background of it. Wouldn't that be funny if we were there like actually at the same time?
I hope so.
I doubt that's the case.
At some point we need to drill down what dates we were both in England because we know it was the same summer, right?
Yeah.
Summer of 2000.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to figure this out. Like that's just crazy. So oh man. Ryan, what's yours?
So mine is one that I just forgot that was a cool thing. So I'm excited to share about it. And it's called Fountains Abbey. And it's just outside of Yorkshire in England. And I realized as I was thinking about this, it's my first ruin. So if those people who have been listening to the podcast regularly will know that when I was in Ireland, we went and saw a whole bunch of ruins. And I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I love them. Ruins are just super interesting to me. And I don't know why. And Fountains Abbey was actually the first one that I ever went to. And it's an old abbey, so a church, very large. And it's out, again, in England. And I was 18 at the time. I was there right after I had graduated from high school. Me and my cousin, who's just a few months younger than me, we both got to go out there. And I had some family that were living there. And so they took us to a whole bunch of different places. And one of the places was Fountains Abbey. And it's just very just kind of quiet and serene. And most of the walls are there, but there are no like roofs pretty much anymore. Although I think there was one area that still had some of the arches, which was cool. And there's grass throughout it. And it's the big, huge grounds. And there's all sorts of other things that you can kind of see. And I think there's, parks and gardens and things. But it's just a really cool area to just kind of walk around and recognize that it's very, very old. And just to kind of be kind of thoughtful and reflective and kind of imagine what it might have looked like. I think that's maybe one of the things that I enjoy about ruins is you get a piece of what it looked like, but not the whole thing. And so you can kind of fill in the gaps yourself and then also see how nature has kind of reclaimed part of what we have added to it. And so there's an element of what humans have done, but then also a natural element kind of coexisting in the same place, which I think is kind of cool. So Fountains Abbey, just outside of Yorkshire in England.
Awesome.
Wow. That's wonderful.
So we should all go.
Yes, we
Let's
should.
do it.
Right now. Let's go.
Okay. I'm ready.
Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here today?
I would like to take us to a town called Stoke-on-Trent in England. Yes, there are dashes between those words. And something that you may not have known about Stoke-on-Trent, or if you even didn't know that it was a place, is that there are all sorts of ceramics that have come out of this area. And so specifically the one I want to talk about is called the World of Wedgwood. Have you heard of Wedgwood, China?
Yes.
So you can go on a factory tour there and check out how they make it. And of course, there's a gift shop. And so if you're into China, if that's your jam, you could get something Wedgwood from the Wedgwood factory. Apparently, there's also an outlet in this city. And so that was really fun. My mom likes Wedgwood a lot. So my family went there in 2000. And I think a factory tour is so fun, just seeing like the ins and out of how something is made. And I think I enjoy pottery a lot more with like a pottery wheel, but it was interesting seeing about fine china. But also there are so many ceramics factories in this one little town. So many. Like I'm looking on their town website and there's a list of there's 28.
In just their town?
Yes. So Stoke-on-Trent is like the pottery area of England, I guess.
Interesting.
And so if that's your jam, I mean, that would be a fun trip.
For sure.
Check out like all these China factories. So yeah, but check out the World of Wedgwood. It's pretty cool. I'm a fan.
That sounds cool.
How about you, Ryan?
Well, mine isn't so clever, and it's one that I definitely can't access right now. But it is fun a little bit to go back and revisit some old memories. So I'm going to recommend the Globe Theatre in London.
I've never been there.
No, you didn't go when you were there?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So the Globe Theatre, for those people who are not familiar, that's where Shakespeare is known for doing a lot of his shows. Now, the Globe Theatre that's in London is not the original Globe. That's not the Globe that Shakespeare, had his shows performed in back in the day. It's a recreation of the Globe.
Okay.
But it's rebuilt, to the best of our knowledge, in the same way that the Globe was built. And they have like a museum and you can tour it, and they actually do shows. Probably not right now. Although I was on their website and it looked like maybe they're starting the shows because it's technically open air. So there's no roof over the main part of it. So it's a circle. So it's around. And then there's places to stand and to sit kind of in a covered area around the circumference of the circle, but then there's no cover that goes over the whole thing. And so if you are standing on kind of like on the floor, then you look up, then you're just seeing the sky. So I think they might be considering maybe running some shows where people are socially distanced there because it is technically outdoors. So, but I'm not 100% sure on this. I can't tell. But I'm not there right now either. So, but it was really cool. This is I think I shared on the podcast earlier, one of the things that I wished that I hadn't done in the past, which was I missed a flight.
Yes.
Yep. So the morning that I was in London and the morning we were leaving, I went to the Globe Theatre because I wanted to go, and my cousin didn't have a lot of interest. And so I got up, he was still sleeping. I went to the Globe, like I'd found where to go on the tube, took the tube out, did the tour, and came back, and I had calculated that I'd have just enough time that when I got back, I would have already been packed, and then we could just grab our stuff and go to the flight. And so I went and I saw the Globe, and it was awesome, and I enjoyed it, and I came back, and my cousin was still asleep, and we missed the flight.
Boo.
But I did get to see the Globe, and it was fun. And so that would be a place that if you end up in London, I think would be fun to see. It's very fun.
So, Ryan.
Yes, Cheryl.
Is it worth missing a flight over?
No.
But that's not why we missed the flight.
I
Lucy would have made the
know.
flight.
I know.
But no, I wouldn't say it's worth missing a flight. Well, I guess it depends on your personality. For someone like me, no, because it stresses me out to then have to fly standby. Like that is the worst thing in the world to me, because nothing is guaranteed and you never know what's going to happen. Even though I know in my head it's going to work out and it'll be fine, it still raises my stress level. There are other people who that would not really faze them. They would be totally fine flying standby. It wouldn't be a super big deal, in which case maybe it would be if they are interested in theater or history or English or both or all three.
Okay.
Long
Cool.
answer to your
So,
question.
almost worth missing a flight over then.
Almost, depending on
pretty
who
good.
you are.
Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, it was. We would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's at TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us, what are your wish you were here's for this location?
We would love to hear that. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699. Or if it's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWY. We would love it if you would rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about this episode on your social media.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we have for this episode, so until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you!
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting to be